Morning. I would like to call this meeting of the Broome County Industrial Development Agency Audit and Finance Committee meeting to order. It is March 19th, 2025. First order on the agenda is to accept the minutes from the February 19th, 2025 meeting. Everyone's had a chance to review those. So we will accept them for the record. No objection. Next on the agenda is public comment period. Anyone wishing to address anything concerning the Audit and Finance Committee, state your name, limit your comments to 5 minutes. Being none, we will close the public comment period. First item up for business, we're going to skip to number 5. Review and recommendation of a resolution approving the readoption of the agency's investment and deposit policy, the internal controls and financial accountability policy, the purchasing policy, the property acquisition guidelines, and the property disposition guidelines with no changes. Natalie, please.
Thank you, Dan. Just for the record, I want to make note that this is an IDA and LDC audited and finance committee.
Okay.
Binding. So when we discuss the audit and these policies, they're for the IDA and the LDC. The Authority Budget Office requires that the agency review its financial policies every year and either modify them or recommend that they be reapproved for the following year as is. The staff reviewed the policies mentioned and recommend that they be accepted with no changes.
Question?
I'm not on this committee, right?
No.
But you're. I didn't think so. I couldn't
There's no
remember.
questions.
If you have a question, you can ask.
No question.
I'll be back. She was told him. He's about 10 minutes away.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, that's.
Good, we have a motion and a second, all in favor? Yeah,
Whichever one you want, yeah, motion or second, use it however you want.
Exactly. Hey,
Use
Lord,
it however you
you
want.
don't have a lot of choices here.
Yeah.
opposed, motion carried. Next, number 6, review and recommendation of a resolution authorizing the executive director of the Broome County Industrial Development Agency to make expenditures from the Economic Development Fund as set out below.
Okay, so a number of items for you to consider this month. If you recall, it was, I think, 2 budgets ago, we had requested to the Audit and Finance Committee a set aside of monies from our maturities from our US Treasuries. As you know, we're very limited in how we can spend those dollars, and more times than not, they get shuffled into our overall investment account. However, we do have that money sitting in a money market that's earning about 4% currently. That fund does show up in your financials. We try to keep that at $500,000. And the purpose of this, we thought, was to help kickstart or lead various economic development initiatives on behalf of a specific project or a larger initiative. And it has been a busy year. So we do have a few requests for the Audit and Finance Committee to consider. And we thought it would be easier to go through those under one resolution, and you can vote on them all as one, or if you want to pull one at you, we can discuss that as we go. So I'll start with the first one. As we continue to look at advancing various sites, including existing facilities in our community, this first request would be to facilitate the development of a master facility strategy on behalf of the Huron campus owned by Phoenix Investors. What we would do is provide the funds at 50%, which is the required match by New York State. I believe the maximum grant for the New York State Strategic Planning and Feasibility Studies Grant Program requires a 50% match. So the request to the Audit and Finance is for $75,000. This would be for the purpose of leading a master facility planning process on behalf of the Huron campus in the village of Endicott. It will provide us the ability to create a comprehensive review of the physical space and infrastructure at the campus with the intent to outline needs and costs to modernize and make the campus essentially more shovel ready, and also avail the campus to additional larger potential grant funding. It will also help maximize the use of the space and provide opportunity for a more comprehensive strategy when receiving RFIs on projects. We'll have basically a master plan that can inform that. That is item number one.
Can we have questions as we go along?
Yeah, I think maybe we'll go through each, have a discussion and
Yeah.
do it that way.
Yeah, just, my question is, do we have to still apply for that, a fast grant, or do we already have it?
So what we think, and currently the way Fast New York is written, is that it does not provide funds to existing sites, but I have had a number of conversations with existing buildings, I should say. I shouldn't say sites, I should say buildings. We have had a number of what I think are productive conversations with Empire State Development on, given the complexity of that campus. Would they, if we came to, they alluded that they would want to see sort of a master plan, similar Eastman Kodak Park did that many years ago, which is about double the size or more of Huron. They created a master plan for it. And it
So
helped.
when you say shovel ready, does that mean that there's some vacant land on the campus?
Yeah, I think it would
Yeah.
look at how to
There
reutilize,
is,
So,
yeah.
reutilize existing building space, reutilize existing asphalt footprints, modernize the energy, the sort of the
The
capacity, the
right?
infrastructure there.
Analyze all the infrastructure.
Yeah, I think it needs
Which it needs a
update.
lot.
Yeah,
and how
so
much of the campus is available right now or would be made available?
Yeah,
What percentage of it?
I think, I want to say conservatively, my conversations with the Phoenix Investors team is somewhere around 50%. Last I was in conversations, is available.
Right, so, and as part of the master plan, you're saying that, you want to make it shovel ready, so I would assume that would also include some environmental analysis in the buildings
Yeah.
and on the vacant land?
Yeah, so we would
Mhm.
essentially drive the process of issuing RFP for qualified firms to run that and oversee that and be the liaison with other potential funding resources on that.
Yeah, so if it costs $150,000 to do this, we're gonna give a grant of 75, right?
Well, we would just be the match, and we would be, so it would, we would be that match of
Right,
75,000.
up to 75.
Yeah, up to,
Yep.
and if it's less than, it would be
Right, yeah,
50%
right.
of whatever,
So we're the,
yeah, whatever that cost
we're
is.
given the grant, okay.
And there, the application Amy Williamson is working on one currently. We have had, multiple conversations with the Huron team that's due at the end of this month. So it's, the state has encouraged us to get that
So you're
application.
saying, I didn't know that part, so we're gonna give a grant to Huron? Or
We would,
we're not gonna do, we're just,
we would lead the process.
we would do it,
Oh,
we're
we're
not
gonna
giving
lead
them.
the process.
Yes,
Right,
yeah,
we're gonna,
yeah,
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Now,
would be the awardee.
yeah, does that include buildings and vacant
Yes,
land
it
there
would be the
that's where
entirety
they're
of
knocking the whole thing
Yeah,
down
it would
to?
be the whole footprint, like how to, best, highest and best view
All
for
of
the
IBM.
whole building.
Yeah.
group. Yes, all of the campus.
So-
So
Not to be a student out here, but
It's
so who's putting the other money in?
State,
the state would put the other,
Oh, got
yeah.
it.
That's-
Not
that would be
Huron.
the fast
Okay,
Yeah.
got it, okay. Now I'm clear. Yep.
Okay, all right. Moving forward, the second request is a request for a renewal, but at a reduction. So last year we paid for software services with a group called Placer AI. Placer AI provides location analytics, including things like visitor trends, trade area, activity, demographic, traffic counts. It's all based on your cell
That's
phone
right.
data. That's, yes. The platform is being used currently to benchmark activity. We're using it on our side of the house, if you will. We're working with Visit Binghamton. Visit Binghamton's looking at that to do things like economic impact of large scale events in the community. And we're using it when responding to project RFIs. It does provide some enhanced data and analytics for us. Last year, we paid, I think, the full value of the contract, which was 28,000. This year, I'm only requesting 18,000, and Visit Binghamton. We anticipate Visit Binghamton and the county would potentially partner on the remaining cost. And the contract did go up to, it was 28 last year, it's 33 now because there's a specific tourism component that Visit Binghamton would cover.
Yeah, that gives great information along with someone's looking at it and utilizing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Third request would be for our continued support and work with Entrust. Entrust is the group that provided the interconnection report for the proposed Broome Technology Park. They did an interconnection report for, looking at the ability over an extended period of time to, achieve 250 megawatts of capacity at the proposed park and for the enhancement of the overall, grid users, essentially. So this would, that first analysis was, part of, the interconnection report was the first part of the plan before you submit a full ISO capacity impact study. That cost we have, we expect will be, reimbursed to us through New York State through a second FAST application that we've applied for. And we've been given verbal notification that, the state is looking upon that favorably. So I expect all of these funds would be reimbursed, but it would be, an up to $100,000 for support in actually submitting the application and everything that goes with that.
Okay, tell me again,
Learning
what
a
does
lot.
POI stand for?
Point of interconnection.
Okay.
Yeah, Joe, I'm learning a lot, but.
Yeah, you are. You're doing good.
Yeah, I'm, maybe you can explain this to
yeah,
me.
I mean, so this is the study that, I mean, it is gonna like go up the valley too, right? Is
Yes,
that the one
yeah.
that's gonna really
It would
tell
serve-
about everything?
Yeah, it
The
would.
Oakdale Park and everything, yeah.
Mhm.
That, I mean, you have to have that study
Yeah.
for us.
So it just essentially continues our professional service relationship with Entrust, who did the initial interconnection report. And again, I do expect it would be reimbursed to
So
us.
there is an existing one now, you're saying, interconnection, or like a preliminary report?
Preliminary, so as I'm learning, you have to do this interconnection report first before you can go to the next step of the ISO.
So this takes the preliminary and builds on it?
It uses it as the basis for correct me where I'm wrong here. My understanding is it uses the interconnection as the basis to then sit down with utility provider, in this case, NICEAG. And to submit to the ISO, I guess,
Yeah.
to fill out the application for the
Yeah.
impact
And I
analysis.
think it starts to dig deeper into real costs of it,
Yeah.
you know?
So this preliminary report, is this something any of us would understand besides Joe, or, I mean, is something we should
Actually,
see,
it was
or?
pretty
It was
good.
pretty out, yeah,
Can we see that?
yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'll
I
send
mean,
that.
yeah, you
I
read
didn't
the
even know it
summaries and
existed,
stuff.
so,
No, you'll understand it.
yeah,
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 basically telling you, we don't
Yeah.
have much power around here. That's
yeah,
basically
yeah,
telling
I'd
you.
be interested.
Yeah. No, you'd understand. It was well done.
Yeah, I mean, if we're paying for a report, I think it'd be good for
Yeah,
us to
for
see it.
sure.
Yep. Sure.
And then
Definitely understand it.
I think it's the last item for the IDA, would be to lead an planning initiative, another planning initiative, for the development of a regional workforce training center focused on advanced manufacturing. Somewhat, but not exactly crafted after the on-ramp proposal. The state issued a regional competition for on-ramp, which is a long acronym to support advanced manufacturing workforce, really that initial entry level and basic skills training. The southern tier was not selected as one of the three regions, however, in continued conversations with the state, they have encouraged us to pursue a planning effort that could lead to ultimately an application to develop a regional workforce training center. So essentially, similarly, we would drive the planning process, do an RFP to select firms that could help craft, essentially how we would build out a hub location somewhere in the greater Binghamton area.
Then would we reapply to become a center?
We would apply for, we would reapply for state funds, not
Yeah.
necessarily through that specific initiative, but we've been encouraged to take the next step in planning to then apply for funds.
So just to comment, and I may be misinformed, but if I'm not misinformed, I have a problem with this project. I've been told that Broome Tioga workforce hasn't been involved in any of this up to this point.
For the on-ramp initiative, we had about 6 to 8 weeks. We did a number of stakeholder meetings, and Broome Tioga was a participant in those meetings. And that was just to craft an outline of what this would look like. It was a regional initiative, not just Binghamton focused. So since we were informed that this isn't moving forward, but we've been encouraged to reapply, we would actually set up a whole new steering committee that would include Broome Tioga workforce as part of the.
Yeah, I mean, as a mere participate in a little bit of a scoping session isn't much. I mean, it seems to me that up until now, or currently, they are the regional center. And it seems to me that they should be central to this effort. And then maybe you have other reasons that I don't know of for not including them, but and we can talk later if you want, but I feel like they really should be central. to
Yeah,
this
no,
planning effort.
again, the initial steering committee that was crafted for on-ramp was actually created by New York State, not our office. So that initial steering committee was created out of our regional office.
Mhm.
And then what we did was, a number of stakeholder engagements that included workforce boards from across the region, not just Broome Tioga, but Chemung, Tompkins, all of the parts of the region. So that was just because we had such a limited time to submit the on-ramp. So moving forward, we would get to essentially craft our own steering committee, in which I would envision Broome Tioga being a key component of that as we're looking at Greater Binghamton as the hub.
The other question I have, and maybe this isn't the right forum to discuss this, but are we gonna discuss this more at a board meeting or? is this
Well,
it?
today, I mean, approval of if the audit finance makes the recommendation to the board, what that would do is we would start to craft an RFQ for qualified firms and puts together the
Mhm.
steering committee. So it's essentially been on hold
Mhm.
until.
I'm just wondering, why not just
able to
use the
fund it.
existing organization and build it up to do what you want it to do?
Well, I think that would all be something that would come out of a more engaged planning process. So on-ramp first step was, spend a few weeks and put something into the state. If you were awarded, you actually only got a grant to do a planning process. So
Mhm.
we're just essentially continuing what we
Okay.
would have
Okay.
done. So all of that would have been fleshed out and I think they only gave you for that 6 months.
Yeah, so we're
Which
just
is
talking
not
about
a-
planning funds right now.
Yeah, this is all.
Okay,
This planning
because
may,
I just don't wanna see any
they may recommend
duplication
what
of
you're saying.
efforts.
Yeah, no, this would all be,
And nobody's
Yeah.
planning on, eliminating Tioga County from.
Right.
and
Yeah.
that, I
whole
mean, and the
discussion.
nicer thing about this is we're doing this. So sort of at our own pace and can create the steering committee as we would want to, so. Groups like Broome Tioga, all the workforce board would be critical to those
Mhm.
more engaged and lengthier conversations.
Right, because
Yeah.
I know that they're, by virtue of their existence, they're eligible to get funds
Yes,
for certain
absolutely.
things, and
Mhm.
we obviously can't get rid of them.
And I think this is more a focus too on some of the wraparound support, which I know they do a lot of, so I think their role in that would
Yeah.
be critical,
Mhm.
just the entry points. So I could see them being very centrifugal to the process, for
Okay.
sure.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
Yep, sure. So those are all, I think, the IDA. Oh, well, this is IDA and LDC, right? So we can go right
Yeah.
into. So those, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, just for this.
Sorry, yeah, I was gonna say that
Just
doesn't
for
make
this
sense.
part, not for the other one.
So the total value of those, if recommended, would be, and again, some of these are up to, so if the numbers were less than. Be, less,
3.25?
but, I think it was 340. I do my math correctly,
Buck and a half, 100,075. Oh, I'm sorry, the
Yeah.
18, sorry.
343 of the 500.
343.
My apologies.
And then contracts for all these would come back to the boards for approval.
Thank you, Stacy. No objections to lumping these together. I mean, I just seems like.
Yes, official.
So looking for a motion to approve, move forward. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
That's it. I think that's it. We're jumping back to the audit, all right?
Right, are we? Back to item 4, review and recommendation of a
Sorry.
resolution approving the 2024 audit of the Broome County Industrial Development Agency and the Broome County Local Development Corporation conducted by Zero and Company, CPAS LLP.
Okay, as you know, as required by the authorities, budget office, we are required to approve our 2024 audit for the Broome County IDA and LDC. They'll be discussed separately, by March 31st to be entered into the Paris reporting system. So it's been a pleasure once again to work with Insero Advisors, for our audit. And I have Rita King to walk us through.
Thank you. I'm Rita King. I'm an audit supervisor with Insero. I believe I spoke to almost all of you at your last board meeting in the back room to do inquiries. So we're here to present the drafts of the IDA and the LDC. We're gonna start with the IDA and we're gonna start with this executive summary package. So on page 2, this is the deliverables of our audit report. So our auditors report on financial statements and supplementary information. We're issuing an unmodified, otherwise known as a clean opinion, the best opinion you can get. The next report is the auditor's report on internal control or financial reporting in accordance with government auditing standards. Since you are a government agency, we have to do some additional testing and compliance work. Again, that we have issued an unmodified or clean opinion. There is one item identified that is in the letters that we've discussed with management, and you can find it. The last one is a new letter. It's other reporting required by New York State Public Authorities law in compliance with section 2925. This relates to investments. So one of our other clients had an audit by the ABO, and they said that our previous reports and letters did not substantiate that you're in compliance with your investment laws and following everything. So there's just a 1-page letter at the back of the bound report that states you're in compliance. We found no issues. On page 3, quick management comment letter, there are no issues or comments that we had to address. Page 4 is required communication. So we are required to communicate with those charged with governance at the conclusion of the audit. So we did one at the beginning. Here's the end one. This letter discusses the qualitative aspects of accounting. There were no difficulties encountered in performing the audit. There were some corrected misstatements that are in the letter. There were no disagreements with management. Once we have the remaining pilot information, we'll send a management representation letter that states that we've received everything and it's all clear and concise and good. There were no consultations with other independent accountants, no other issues or audit findings or other matters noted. So we've gone over all the numbers with management. If you want to go over the numbers, we can, but it's up to you guys.
So the one blip that you noticed, you're satisfied that that's taken care of?
Yes, yep.
It was related, do you want to just walk them through what that was?
So
It was
for the
related to-
IDA, it's related to the Bluestone wind, right? Bluestone wind. So you had projects that you get a set amount of fee, you're supposed to recognize a set amount yearly over the course of, this one was 20 years. So because it's a set amount and you have to recognize it, instead of recognizing it, putting it in, we're booking the revenue and then booking the receivable during the year because you are owed that money. So it's just because of how that contract and agreement was written, that it's a multi-year agreement and with receivable.
So we'll choose from time to time if there's a fee of a larger value to extend the payment over a period of years. So it's recurring income. We'll make that arrangement with the developer specifically. We have the Bluestone and we also had Spark JC.
Yes.
Spark JC. But I think the issue is just we have to restate it in the year in which.
Yeah, so if you were to do one in 25,
Yeah.
for like, say 2 million, and you're gonna say, oh, you can pay 90,000
Yeah.
over 20 years. In 25, you would record the entire receivable and the revenue in this year.
because of how with,
When you record the revenue as you receive it?
no, because when you receive it, you're gonna hit the receivable in cash.
Okay.
So it's a weird, it looks weird, but it
Yeah,
just
yeah.
shows that you still are owed that money.
And if you don't collect it, it becomes a bad debt.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, if there is an evaluation every year of the allowance, like of the collectability of the receivable. If you determine you're not gonna collect it, then we would create the allowance and ultimately write it off, like we had a write-off, I believe it was last year.
Yeah, the canopy was one that was extended, I think, over a 5-year period. When they notified us they were no longer moving forward with the project, they paid the
Governmental
fee in full,
account.
the remainder of the balance in full.
They are, wait to collect it, right?
Okay, I'm satisfied.
Yeah.
So then we'll take a look at the LDC one. So again, on page 2 for the LDC, we have the same reports. We're also issuing an unmodified clean opinion. The auditors report in accordance with government auditing standards. Again, we have a clean opinion. There is one item that was identified that is in the letter, and it was really due to timing. We have, again, the report with compliance with section 2925 for investments. There were no issues. On page 3, we have the auditor's report on compliance and internal control for each major program required by uniform guidance. Because you receive the state and local fiscal recovery money from Broome County and you expended more than $750,000 during the year, you're required to have an additional audit, a single audit. With that, we have an unmodified clean opinion. Again, there's one item that's identified that affected the CFA. For the year ended 2024, you had a total federal expenses of $3.2 million. That's all that money from Broome County that you received, and you're working your way on spending. And then management comment letter, there are no issues or comments to report. And then on page 4, again, we have the required communications at the conclusion of the audit with those charged with governance. The only item that we had was a corrected misstatement that has already been corrected. And other than that, we had no other issues or concerns.
Yeah, back on the IDA side of things,
Yes.
did we recategorize, or consolidate some categories between 23 and 24?
In what terms? On the
And, well, both the expenses and the revenues,
So
mostly expenses.
the revenues, no, the revenues pretty much stay the same because your biggest revenue is your fee income. The expenses we did, so the biggest change is I know the tech park has been tracked separately on the books. In terms of the report, we have broken that up into the categories that they should be into.
Mhm.
So the legal, the engineering and everything. So that is why there is such a big jump in the professional fees this year. Because most of it is sitting there as opposed to just sitting in the other category that would have a huge balance and everyone would say, why is other expenses really high?
That was actually what I was driving as
Yes.
professional fees, almost half of our.
Yes, and it's, so it is, the majority of it is from the tech park.
Okay.
And recategorizing it, so it is still tracked separately by the agency on their books.
Yeah.
It's just for report presentation,
Mhm.
because someone would see the other expenses, would have pretty much done the same thing and question why are other expenses half of your expenses.
I like your, tables. I'm assuming, or can I assume that these are all broken down further in the actual body of the report?
Financial report.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
The bond.
Yes, on the
Okay,
bottom.
thank you.
Any other question?
Nope.
For motion to move this forward to the full board.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Bring it over.
Oh, I'm sorry, no old business.
Motion for adjournment is now in order.
So move, yeah, second. Joe beat me. Yeah.
It's not.
Okay, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Brooklyn County Industrial Development Agency of March 19th, 2025. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes of our February 19th board meeting.
Motion.
Elaine, is there a second? Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Come to the part of our agenda where we have our public comment session. Anybody wishing to speak on any matter concerning the IDA? Please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments, if you will, to 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm John Solak. I live in Binghamton. Looking over your board packets, I don't see the minutes to the public hearing that was held Monday on this project in Vestal. Does anybody have those minutes? Has anybody seen the minutes of the public? You have? And they, where did they come through on, how did you,
They came via email from our transcriptionist.
but they're not in the board packet.
No, because they came after the board packet went out, so they did go to the board following the public hearing on March 17th.
Okay. I wonder if the auditors were informed that in 2024, you were claiming 80 hours a week at the Chamber of Commerce and the IDA in violation of your agreement at that time. I wonder if the auditors were privy to that fraud and that cover-up. I just wonder. I've been around, I proposed legislation for the city, and I was at the town of Union that they create their own IDAs. As everybody knows, every town government, you can have more than one IDA in a county. And I have proposed that to the city of Binghamton in a request for legislation, and I spoke to the town of Union, and I will do the same in Vestal. Because what's going on here is a complete travesty. You're destroying the tax base for your own delusions of grandeur. And it's not funny anymore. It really is not funny. Why are you doing this? Why are you trying to create this David Copperfield type illusion of prosperity when you're destroying the tax base? Now, so far, the Vestal has been immune for the most part from the ravages of the IDA. But now, once this Trojan horse is established, Vestal is gonna go right down the crapper along with the town of Union and Binghamton. That's the way it goes. That's why Vestal needs to form their own IDA. Now, an unprecedented thing has occurred in the county in recent years, and that's bailouts for the county clerk's office. Hundreds of thousands, the county clerk's a simple operation, file, and that's about it, fee and file, issuing driver's licenses. And over the last few years, the county clerk's office had $500,000 bailout at one occasion. Now, what's causing this? What's causing this loss of revenue? Well, the county clerk's association, well, people aren't renewing their license, their registration, they're doing it directly with the state. No. You know what it is? It's the mortgage tax abatements that this IDA is handing out. If you look at the amount of money that the county is short, the county clerk's office is short, and you look at the amount of mortgage tax abatements that you're handing out, it comes out almost to a wash, So that's what you're doing. You're destroying the county clerk's revenue source. So, I'm glad that the people of Vestal finally realize the con job that you're doing. You're trying to destroy their community. And once this is established, everybody in Vestal is going to demand this, and you're going to facilitate. And like I say, I've seen this just in my short life, I've seen this go from 2 or 3 years to 23 years. I've seen the mortgage tax abatement come on. I've seen all this stuff, and it's not pretty, and it's very, very distressing to me that one group of individuals, one agency has, who, none of which are elected, has such destructive power. And the track record here speaks for itself. It's virtually every project is a failure, and all these new projects, essentially, in one way or another, a lot of them relate to past failures and covering up the past failures. So it's time, and congratulations to the Binghamton School Board. They stood up against this agency, and they saved the taxpayers a bundle of money on that ridiculous asinine project to put luxury apartments, I don't know, with a view of Bosco. You know, it's absolutely absurd.
30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. So, let's see what I can do here. I'll take a deep breath and see what I wanna, see if I can wrap it all up. Maybe I won't, maybe I'll just fade out like I was a former president or something. I think that's about it. I think that, and on the IDA, and one of the irksome things, and I've said it before, is the fact that these projects can be sold and the pilot transfers. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Would anybody else like to speak at this public comment session?
Morning, good afternoon. Tom McCartney, I'm the chairman of the Board of Fire Commissioners for the Vestal Fire District. Address is 1136 Front Street, Vestal. We're just trying to better understand what the potential impact is for the fire district in the event a pilot is provided for this project. We have a significant volume of property within the town of Vestal that does not pay taxes, and we still have to respond to emergencies at these facilities. We have a phenomenal relationship with Binghamton University. 25% of the nearly 1,000 fire calls in the town of Vestal are to Binghamton University, and we receive no tax revenue to support operations. The cost of fire equipment is up 40%, and we have a plan that is driven by regulation to replace equipment on a 20-year basis. That burden is on the backs of the taxpayers to try to provide the level of service that is necessary for a town that size. If we don't see a revenue stream or a facility that we have to provide services to, that cost is spread across the people who are paying taxes. So I want a better understanding to know what the implications are, so we can plan and budget for it and move forward. Thank you.
Can I just ask you, I could be wrong. I thought Vestal had a fire district, no?
It is a fire.
So I don't think
Yeah,
district
no.
taxes are exempt, are they?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you will be getting revenue.
We'll address that.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Okay, I did not know that.
Through the fire
That's why I'm
district.
here.
Yeah, that's how you get your revenue.
So, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom.
Would anybody else like to speak?
All right, thank you. My name is Glenn Miller. I'm councilman in town of Bethel. I live at 49 Hazel Drive in Bethel. And the supervisor, sexton supervisor of the town, sent out an email late last night that I hope the board saw. Did you see that email? You saw it was in there? Okay, so I don't have to repeat any of that. I will repeat one section where it says pilots are necessary for projects that cannot be funded or provide a substantial benefit to the community. Projects such as affordable housing, revitalization of blighted areas, or the creation of substantial amount of jobs are appropriate uses of pilots. The project at 4105 Vestal Parkway East does not do any of those things. It consists of luxury apartments with commercial space that will generate substantial income for the owners. The only benefit to the community would be the tax revenue, but this proposal is there to substantially reduce that. So the board is against this, the supervisor is against this. It did go through the planning board in Vestal, but this tax abatement was not mentioned at that time. So this is an after the fact approval from planning board of the town. And I know you only see one person here, but what I would like you to do is visualize the tens of thousands of taxpaying residents of Vestal behind me. They're I would imagine all saying, no, we do not want a tax abatement here. We want the business to pay their fair share of taxes, just like we, the residents, do. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak at this public comment session? We'll call this session to a close. Executive Director's Report. Stacy?
We have a full agenda, so I'm gonna keep it brief, just a few project updates. We are set in the months ahead to close on 3 pending projects. That would be the Nikon Trading Center, market rate housing project in the village of Johnson City, the Raymond Corporation expansion into the town of Kirkwood, and Sun Development, that is a multi-use housing and commercial space project in the village of Johnson City. We did receive was posted yesterday on the governor's website, a press release issued about the recent round of housing and community renewal fund. Those are the 9% competitive low-income housing tax credit projects. Broome County, and we compete for those across the region. Broome County submitted several. I think there were at least 4 that I'm aware of. There was only 1 awarded in Broome County, and there were 2 others that were in Tompkins County. The one awarded in Broome was the First Ward Action Council Gateway Project, which we do have an approved pilot benefit for. So we will follow up with Jerry Willard and his team on anticipated closing. I'm guessing not until the fall, because they typically align our closing with the state's closing. That does mean, however, unfortunately, the former IBM Country Club project that we, as you know, the LDC does own that land. Conifer, the team was Conifer and CDS Housing that did not get funded. That was a second application for that project. We did discuss with the board some time ago, when that option that they have with us was up for renewal. We would renew while they were seeking the tax credit award, but there was a caveat that if they did not receive funding, that option would immediately expire, and we could sort of regroup and reconsider other opportunities for that site. So we have received word from our project lead on that notifying us that the project did not get awarded. So we'll confer with the town of Union and see what plans they may have moving forward that they'd like to see at the site. So maybe coming back to you all on some other uses. Similarly, that also means that the YWCA project that we do have a pilot benefit for, it did not get approved. There was one item, item number 12 on today's agenda, that was a sales tax extension. We did reach out to the organization today, and they wish to, for the time being, table that, given the recent news on that one. And I think that is all I have for now.
Any questions for Stacy on her update? We had a chance to look at the internal financial report as of, and for the period ended February 28th. Are there any questions on that? And the loan activity report as of February 28th. Any questions for Natalie on that? Moving on to new business, review of investment portfolio. I believe a package was given to everybody. One of the many packages that you received this morning. We have our friendly banker here with us.
Yes, I'd like to thank Scott Fiedler with NBT Bank. NBT, as you know, has managed our investment account for many years. Always just like to give you an annual update on our investment account. Given that we can only invest in really one thing, it's shouldn't be a very long report, but given the volatility in the market, there may be some interesting things. So, Scott.
All right, thank you, Stacy. Stacy is correct. It's not a very long report. Some of the most boring pie charts you'll see today, I'm sure. But first, I'd like to do just the portfolio overview for anybody that hasn't been in this meeting before. There's 2 main accounts that we use to manage these funds. One is an investment management account that is limited to U.S. Treasury securities as far as its investments. And then the other is just a commercial DDA money market account that is used to collect income that is generated by those treasury securities. And hold cash that's needed for liquidity purposes. Okay, so, this overview provides the market values of both. So the investment account as of the end of February was 8,535,692. At par, that's 8,492,000. Okay, the transition account, that's the name of the money market account. Had a balance of 500,102. And that is, up until last year, we were targeting a maximum balance in that account of 275,000. But requested that we increase that to 500,000. So when that starts to bump above 500,000, then we pull that excess out and reinvest using the portfolio of government securities. Okay, so during the fourth quarter of 2023, the board requested a shift in the investment strategy. And what I mean by that is when you're buying treasury bills or treasury notes, you can buy them based on the greatest yield to maturity or the greatest yield. Yield is just simply the income or the coupon payments. And my standard practice was to increase the yield to maturity, but if you wanted to focus more on income, and really, it doesn't make much of a difference as far as total return goes, but it does provide a bigger number on the income line for the revenue stream. So I executed that strategy on December 14th. So I sold any of the short-term treasury bills. Treasury bills don't pay a coupon, so those obviously don't help you on the income statement at all. And we just went and found the highest yielding treasury notes. Okay, and as a result of that, income for the year for 2024 was 362,720, an increase of 183,000 over the previous year. So 2023's income generated from the portfolio was 179,000. And for 2024, it was 362,000. So we increased income. And not only that, but we also streamlined the portfolio. We used to have a laddered portfolio of maturities every month or two. We'd have securities maturing, and it was just determined that you don't really necessarily have the need for that much liquidity, so we can easily streamline that and have fewer notes, higher income, and fewer maturities. So now we've got it in every couple of months maturing.
So question, it looks like we're buying 2-year treasury bills, is that correct? For the most part?
We are buying, not necessarily, no. We're buying a laddered portfolio of treasury bills. All would be commonly referred to as short term, meaning 5 years or less. And they're treasury notes, not treasury bills are less than 1 year. Treasury notes are greater than 1 year and pay a coupon.
The other question is, so it looks like we're getting currently 3% on our money market accounts currently. I don't know if we could do any better with a CD, like a short-term CD or treasury bill. I'm just wondering, we have $375,000 currently just sitting and checking, not earning anything. Would you ever recommend that the IDA invest most of its idle cash for very short terms? It could be a number of days, it could be weeks, it could be a couple of months, 3 months. So that they have very little idle cash, so that everything we have is earning money. And that's something that Roane County does, I know, and they've got a whole lot more money than the IDA does. I assume that, but investing idle cash. Like, so you don't have much idle cash.
Yeah.
It's always earning money. I used to be the treasury manager for Roane County, so, I would I made $1 million over budget the first time I was there just by keeping really small terms for our idle cash and just having it come due when the bills are coming due.
And that's really what this entire portfolio is. It's excess cash that doesn't need to be sitting in a money market or a checking account. So it can be yielding a little bit more, and that, I guess it depends on what you consider idle cash and when you may need to access that idle cash. So, the benefit of going, having something mature every 2 weeks over the yield that you're getting in your DDA account, it may not provide a tremendous benefit. Treasuries will typically yield a little better than a checking or savings account, just because the bank's gotta make their money too.
Well, I mean, how much money does the IDA typically spend at one time?
Yeah, I would wanna sit down with Teresa and see what's the outflow on a monthly basis. It depends on.
I would guess it's not close to $375,000. I mean, I think you can make more money on that as well. But I mean, maybe you could work with them to set up a plan for doing that. It's not hard to do.
Which amount are you talking about?
Well, I'm looking at the cash right now that's not earning any money.
Looking at our checking.
Yeah, checking account, 375,000.
So that would, I mean, that's what the transition account is for. So if you want that to be 150, the checking account to be 150,000, the excess can be moved to the transition, and everything over 500,000 gets moved into here, and we do it that way. We don't handle the checking account or what that's.
Right, yeah.
It's a transition.
Yeah, okay. I mean, and they can be on the phone with the bank
Yeah, but
every
certainly
day
anything that's earning more, we can
making
look at.
investments. You know what I mean? It's,
Yeah,
and
it's,
it doesn't take a lot of time.
Right.
and it's easy for us to,
Yeah.
our back office can just move
Yeah.
the money from that account to our transition account, and then from the transition account to the investment portfolio.
Good point.
Do that. Okay, tab 2, there's that pie chart I referenced before. It's all treasury, so it's
Easy to read.
very easy one to. Okay, so there you see the market value. The next page just gives you a good idea of the allocation and the how we've got these ladder. As these securities mature, obviously, we're gonna be looking to go a little bit further out. Just to get a little more duration. And these short-term yields, they don't look nearly as good as they did when we first started doing this. We don't see those 5.5% 6-month yields anymore. You can see most of the portfolio matures in 2025 and 2026. Like I said, as those mature, we kind of roll them, and eventually we'll be looking into 2029. But the investment policy statement that governs how we invest is pretty vague on how far out we can go, but it says that it can't be further out than the expectation of any need by the agency. So it's vague language, but pretty safe to say we probably shouldn't be buying any 30-year notes.
Right, yeah. It's been a long time since we've even gone to even 5, or 3 or 5. That was just taking advantage of those high yields with the short term. So
Yeah.
given that, we've stretched them out a little bit, but.
Just going out to 2028, you're gonna give up some yield, even now, but you almost have to, because otherwise we'll just get in a jam when it comes time to reinvest in 2027, we'll be stuck with. Who knows? That's the risk. Who knows what the yields are gonna be.
Like
So-
nimble, be nimble when
Yep.
we can.
Okay, so the next page, bottom left corner shows the average yield, 4.51, average yield to maturity, 4.12. Duration is 1.34, and the average maturity is 1.42. So, like I said, we'd be looking to start to stretch that a little bit, just to lock in the somewhat favorable rates. We're not expecting a Fed rate cut today. But we are expecting some this year. Okay, page 5. Another one of those. Usually pie charts. And then page 6 just starts the fixed income fundamentals. This lists every security in the portfolio. And this used to be 3 or 4 pages long, and once we trimmed it down and focused more on those higher yielding, higher income paying treasury notes. We got it on one page.
What's the difference between the transition account and the money market? I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Nothing, the transition, money market. The transition account is a money market.
Okay, okay. And is it getting money in and out of that account? Is it just a stroke of a pen, or is there some other process that you have to go through?
Stroke of a key. These days.
Stroke of a key.
Yeah.
So based on what I was talking about before, you're probably not gonna get much better than 3% NICD in the current climate. But, I mean, I would recommend that you sweep most of your money into the money market, instead of checking. And just take it, put it in checking when you need it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you're making money every day on it.
That's from checking to money market.
Yeah.
To the transition
Yeah.
account as well. Okay. Let us know when.
Yeah, yeah,
And how much.
absolutely.
Any questions on the portfolio holdings or the fixed income fundamentals? Okay, tab 3 is a snapshot of the transition account. Okay, so I highlighted a couple of values there. The available balance is 526,000. This is as of today. That's because there were some income payments from some of those treasury notes, and we just swept that into the transition account yesterday. It's important that no cash be held in this investment account. That's one of the rules that we have to follow. So we have that set up so that when income gets paid, it gets swept out. And then if there's more coming in from the checking after your suggestion, then there will be enough in there to bring it back down to 500,000 and reinvest. Just in the interest of time, I don't think we need to read through these bullet points on market commentary, but I do want to talk about the chart and the yield curve that I have here. And the maturities at the top only go through a 12-month period, but you can see it's not much different. We are still slightly inverted in the yield curve, or I'm sorry, we have the 2-year, 10-year spread is about just over 3 basis points. So going a little bit longer than 2 years does get us a little bit extra yield. With that said, less than a year is yielding better than 2 years. So even the shortest term are yielding better, but I still see advantages in starting to stretch those out a little bit. And that's all I've got.
Any additional questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 7, resolution approving the 2024 audit of the Boone County Industrial Development Agency conducted by the Sarah and Company CPAs LLP. Mr. Treasurer.
This comes forward as a motion to approve.
Thank you, Dan. Is there a second? Any discussion, questions for our lead person here? Let's have a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item number 8, resolution approving the readoption of the agency's investment in deposit policy, the internal controls and financial accountability policy, the purchasing policy, the property acquisition guidelines, and the property disposition guidelines with no changes. Dan,
Also comes forward with a motion to approve.
thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Dan. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item number 9, resolution adopting a local construction labor policy attached with respect to the provision of financial assistance. This would have gone through governance, correct?
It would, yes, yes, it would have, but we had no quorum to do governance, so we are bringing it straight to the board. Everybody should have in their folder. And if adopted, the full policy will be posted to the website, but these are just kind of, I guess, your cheat sheet for the changes we've made to the local labor policy. I want to thank Natalie for all the time that she spent on this and working with Chris Andrucci on some models of other local labor policies. I think for some time, we felt that there's been some need to strengthen ours here locally, and I want to thank Dan Crocker and Dan Gates and Joe Rabideau and Peter Newman for also sort of serving on this ad hoc committee to really make sure that our local labor policy is producing the outcomes that it's intended. So I'm not gonna go through everything, and of course I had the cheat sheet of my own and I grabbed the wrong one. I'm not gonna go through everything on here, but just real quickly. Yes, I have it. No, but I made notes on where it is. The policy overview, just again, going back to the reason why the policy exists is to require companies receiving financial assistance to use qualified local labor for construction related projects to ensure that all local labor has the opportunity to work on projects that we provide assistance to. Our local labor definition has not changed. That is the same as it was previously. The local labor requirement, I think ultimately the change here is we've essentially codified a percentage that we saw through, we were using Rockland County as a great example, one that Harris Beach worked on. So requiring that 80% of workforce on eligible projects must be local, including contractors and subcontractors. And I want to note that the 80% is based on the total value of the project that's subject to New York State sales tax. So things like acquisition and things would not be included in that. It's anything that is subject to that, so a local sales tax. The waiver conditions, I think we've just provided more clarity into what would qualify for a waiver from the IDA on our local labor policy. That's listed on number 4. Item number 5, there are some new items in here. The reporting requirements remain the same as far as a number of the entities are the same. However, what is new is companies must submit project plans after approval of benefits from the IDA. That is strengthened. That's adding more detail into what is being notified to our local labor organizations. This is also a new one, number 6, and I think it's very important that companies must submit local labor utilization reports at application every 90 days and upon project completion. And the agency has the right to inspect records and conduct spot checks. That is a new item. We've always had enforcement through essentially our recapture process has always been on payments related to projects. However, this is adding another level of enforcement related to local labor. And number 7 is also some new items. Number 7, if a company fails to comply, notice of violation is issued. The company has 10 business days to cure the violation, submit a waiver, or confirm non-compliance. And if unresolved, financial assistance may be terminated, and increased inspections may be enforced at the company's expense. The final 2 items relates to covering organize our cost on, review and enforcement. One item that could be considered is, the IDA may require companies to fund an escrow account to cover costs of labor policy review and enforcement. And lastly, compliance and amendment policy applies to the agency upon initial action on a project. Non-compliance may lead to denial or rescission of benefits, and the agency may amend the policy as needed for applicable laws. So I think overall, it's a much stronger local labor policy. And I don't know if there's any questions, or Dan, if you wanted to offer anything.
I think it's a step in the right direction, for sure. Thank you for everybody that input.
Looking for a motion. Joe, second. Any further discussion or questions? Let's have a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item number 10, resolution authorizing the executive director of the Broome County Industrial Development Agency to make expenditures from the Economic Development Fund as set out below. Number 1, to benefit Huron Campus Master Facilities Plan in an amount not to exceed $75,000 as a 50% matching grant to provide a comprehensive review of campus space and infrastructure in furtherance of modernization and to make the campus a shovel-ready site. Number 2, to benefit Placer AI renewal in an amount not to exceed $18,000 to provide location analytics, including visit trends, trade areas, demographics, and traffic counts. Number 3, to benefit the proposed Room Tech Park Energy in an amount not to exceed $100,000, anticipated to be reimbursed from state grants to provide continued support for 250 megawatt interconnection at the tech park. Item number 4, to benefit Regional Manufacturing Workforce Training Center in an amount not to exceed $150,000 to develop a master plan for a regional workforce training center for the greater Binghamton area. Mr. Treasurer.
These all came forward as a motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Mike. Any discussion or any further explanation needed from Stacy? Let's have a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item number 11, resolution authorizing a leaseback transaction to facilitate the acquisition, redevelopment, reconstruction, modernization, renovation, and equipping of the former Quality Inn and Suites facility, the project located at 4105 Vestal Parkway East in the town of Vestal, Broome County, New York, to be used as a ground-up mixed-use community as more fully described below. 2, appointing Aptitude Acquisition LLC or an entity to later be named the company as agent of the agency for the purpose of undertaking the project. 3, authorizing the execution and delivery of certain documents with respect thereto, including A, a payment in lieu of tax agreement, B, a sales and use tax exemption agreement in an amount not to exceed $2,568,000. C, a mortgage tax exemption in an amount not to exceed $552,000. And D, a real property tax exemption in an amount not to exceed $10,074,615. As there was no governance committee meeting, we will talk about this here. Explanation first, background, and then we'll talk about motions. But
Absolutely, thank you. Yes, so I will begin. I just want to note for the record, I did receive a correspondence from Town Supervisor Maria Sexton last evening via email, and that was distributed to the board this morning. I want to, and Tom and Glenn, I hope to answer a number of your questions today as well. First and foremost, the project is considered eligible for a pilot benefit in that anything over 4 units of housing, generally housing, is considered a commercial project and therefore subject to consideration for IDA benefits. So market rate, I know there's a lot of categories of housing, but market rate, affordable workforce housing is eligible for our benefits based on those requirements. I'm going to give you some numbers. I'm happy to dive in a little bit on those. I also would like to welcome the county executive if any points that he'd like to make up during our discussion. I want to address the special assessment because of the special districts. I think that's very important to come. So currently, when we structure a pilot schedule, we get the current assessment. So today it is 4.1 million, roughly $4,155,000 for the current location, the Quality Inn in Vestal. We request from the town assessing unit the assessment upon completion. So we get that from the town assessor's office. With Vestal being 100% equalization rate, the 4.1 million jumps to $40,133,733. So that will be the assessment once the project theoretically is complete. Which brings a lot of tax burden for the developer on that project. I want to note, special districts for any project anywhere in Broome County are exempt from that abatement. They do not get included, so they are paid out 100%. So fire, highway, some have library districts, they're all paid at 100% of the new assessed value of the property. So the payments, and they would never jump below the current assessment. So the special district assessment would be at that $40 million dollar value. And I'm gonna give you some scenarios if the project were to remain, or if the site, the location were to remain as is, and then numbers with the project itself. So current total taxes, so that would include Town of Vestal, Broome County, and Vestal School District. So current taxes are $108,808. So looking over a 20-year period, which is the operational life of the pilot, with no action whatsoever, that property would generate $1,050,478 in taxes based on that number. So then I'll show you with or without. So for the town of Vestal, that translates to about $278,000 over that 20-year term. Now with the project and with the pilot payment, so remember a pilot payment isn't a tax payment, but it's still a payment to the taxing entities. It just doesn't show up in the way your tax bill would show. It doesn't look like that on paper because it's a payment in lieu of your typical tax payment. With the over 20 years for the town of Vestal, with the project and the pilot payment, that would jump from 278 to 1.1 million. Vestal school taxes over that same period of time without the project, so as is roughly 2.1 million. And with the project and the pilot, that payment would jump to $10,943,334. So going from roughly 10 million to nearly 11 million collected by the school district over the life of the pilot. County tax revenue, again, if it remains as is, over that 20-year period would be about $448,060. And the county tax payment with the project and the pilot over 20 years is $3,287,753. So a significant increase in payment. It's not a tax bill per se, but payment in lieu, going to those three taxing entities over the life of the pilot. Some questions arose on the timing of the application to the IDA. It is not uncommon for developers to come to us for the pilot after site plan approval is received. The developer followed a course of sequencing we see often with developers. This provides that the project has received necessary approvals by the municipal entity and has able to move forward once theoretically when the pilot is approved. It also follows the but-for rule that really guides all the work of IDAs, which is typically where the last source of financial assistance to enable the project to move forward. The but for our benefit, the project would not be able to proceed. So we see this quite often. I know given the timeline of when Aptitude would like to begin this project, I'm sure they wanted to lock in their site plan approvals and planning approvals. And then come to us as that final last part of assistance. Some questions on the market rate and the ability to afford the project without the pilot benefit. As I noted, the taxes based on the new assessment would jump from that $500,000 to over $1 million in the first year of operations, which makes developers, just like it would any operating company, really hard to afford that jump in taxes. So as noted, it is not uncommon for market rate projects to seek that stability and that graduated increase in real estate taxes over the life of the project. It's important to bear in mind, market rate developers are subject to the same costs as every other housing developer, construction costs, finance interest costs, et cetera, and oftentimes have less tools than our affordable housing. We were just on a call with some folks from New York State who noted affordable housing projects actually have more programs to cover some of their financing needs as compared to market rate projects, which is typically your traditional lending source. So that pilot does provide much needed stability and allows the project to move forward financially. It's something I think important to the town to know that the IDA does have all IDAs, but the IDA has a robust recapture program that should the project not meet its stated goals, we would be able to recapture not just any current payment, but through the life of the pilot, any taxes, any payments that would have been owed to the taxing entities over the term of the pilot. We actually several years ago modified ours to strengthen so we can recapture more of that payment should a project not meet its stated goals. I also want to note something that came up. We modified our uniform tax exemption policy in 2022. A pilot is not transferable upon sale. The pilot essentially becomes null and void and they have to reapply. So that is, the board certainly has discretion, but there's no automatic transfer with a pilot. We did change that a few years ago. So I do think that our recapture program does provide a layer of protection, if you will, to the municipalities, and that we can recapture those payments and pay them back to the relevant taxing jurisdictions. I also thought it was, since we were talking about housing, I also thought it was important to show how this aligns and how we look at these projects in relationship to housing generally for the county. And the county several years ago did a very comprehensive and thorough county housing needs assessment strategy. And there was in total, over 10 years, over 6,000 new housing units needed to address current and future workforce needs. Within that 6,000 plus, it was like 6,200, 2,170 rental units were identified as being needed to support Broome County over the next 10 years. Of that number, there's approximately 320 that are within the price points of rents that Aptitude Acquisition is proposing. So we do feel this project addresses a significant significant housing shortage to address our current need. And just to expound a little, and I won't take up too much time because I'm sure there's questions. I thought this would be valuable to talk about specifically some locational aspects of the project that we think are of benefit. Through the Chamber of Commerce, there's a program called Experience Bing, which provides community tours to candidates while on tour for job interviews. So when they're coming to the community, they do their interview. We take them through the community. Largest users of this program, hands down, are healthcare, higher education, and manufacturing. So currently the chamber is running about 2 tours per week. So that's about 100 candidates coming into our community to potentially, take a job, build roots. And I asked Jim Ryan, who runs that program for us, just to give us a little bit, because we talk a lot on what are the top concerns of a candidate when they're coming into the community. I thought it might be helpful just to relay some feedback you get quite frequently.
Thank you. So as Stacy said, we're doing about 2 tours a week for UHS, Guthrie, Raymond, Universal, and it's an easy sell in the area in terms of natural and historical assets, but 100% of the tours are asked about housing. Most of the tours have to be a certain proximity from either medical facility or their organization. The proximity to the highways, proximity to Wilson Hospital, General or Guthrie, to the university. Those are major concerns. Almost 100% of the tours want to know where they're going to live. The tours range from directors and physicians, but also the nurse practitioners and the physician assistants, so all different levels. But they want to know where they're going to live. What are the options? and the proximity to the, you know, to their place of work. So that's the toughest part of the tour. The rest is pretty easy. That's addressing those concerns and helping the candidate decide, you know, on housing is a challenge. And I think that, you know, having answers like this would be a huge help to that program.
So I thought to just add some qualitative data to the conversation.
Can I say something about this? And I'm gonna be very blunt about this. I think, you know, you did an excellent job explaining this. And I think the point not to be lost is that without this project, if they're not going to do, they can't do the project without the pilot because the numbers don't work. If they don't do the project, you're giving up over $1 million a year in taxes when everything is said and done. And I would hate to see what I consider to be the tragedy of the school district blocking the housing and project on top of the parking ramp in downtown Binghamton. So what we have now is a parking lot that is on public land and is collecting zero taxes. If they were able to have built that housing project on top of it, first of all, it would have provided some very much needed housing. Second of all, they would be collecting the several hundred thousand, the school district alone would have been
2 million
collecting
annually. For
2
that.
million annually, okay. So,
And
for
net
that
new,
one on
there was
the
never
parking
housing
lot?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was 2 million net new because they had never had housing
Right,
there
yes.
ever. It was always.
Yeah, so,
public.
okay, an extra $2 million a year was just given away. I think it's a tragedy that happened, and I really think that had they really understood what they were doing, they would have let the project go, because it was really much to their benefit, much to the taxpayers' benefit that it happened. And I really, really hope that the town of Vestal doesn't, make the same error and preventing the project like this from happening.
Say anything?
Can I say a few things?
County executive.
First of all,
Thanks for joining us, by the way.
Sure.
Does anybody hear me or?
Go ahead.
So why don't you come right there? Does that work?
Yeah, first of all, I think, Stacy did a great job in taking the words right out of my mouth. Appreciate that, Stacy. But, this is, first of all, the county wholeheartedly supports this project. We do. Aptitude has been great to work with. We first started working with them in the 239 review process that our planning department does. Very communicative, sailed right through. We asked questions, they had answers, and went through the town planning process. But I just want to speak to the benefits, and Stacy really nailed the first one. 4 times as much revenue if you vote for this pilot than what you're getting now. They need, you look at the time period that we're in with the stock market and interest rates and the lack of workers and supply costs going up. It's really incredibly hard to do any of these types of projects. It's a $70 million project, probably one of the largest housing projects that we've seen in some time. I want to talk a little bit about Vestal and the Parkway. So this is professional housing. I don't know who said it wasn't on this board. I think I saw somewhere in the media that it was student housing. It's absolutely not student housing. It is professional housing. This is the type of housing that we need. We need to bring young professionals to this area and keep young professionals in this area. As Stacy said, we did a study, 6,000 new units of housing, and we need everything, all different types of it, including this housing as well. We have tons of job openings, whether it's at the county level, whether it's at the hospitals or some of our largest employers. I think everybody's hurting for employees. Developing more professional housing allows people to come to this community who are coming right to your tours and saying, look, the number one thing I need is housing. Where is it? And it's hard for us to say where it is right now. And having these type of opportunities opens that up. Specifically to the Parkway, I mean, I look at, you know, if I was an elected official in Vestal, I would, you know, all due respect, I would say, I got a couple of hundred professionals that are gonna be living here on the Parkway. They're gonna be going to restaurants on the Parkway. Probably a number of them are gonna be working on the Parkway. That's really important. You know, like I see some empty places on the Parkway. I'd like to see, you know, I wish they'd come in and get some incentives and try to build up their businesses. I see that Pizza Hut's been empty forever. The Friendlies has been empty forever. You know, knock those things down put a Chick-fil-A in there or something like that, right? Like, but like all those, just to get back to what's really important here is that, in regards to the parkways, put a couple hundred more people there and there's gonna be a lot more people frequenting all the businesses in Vessel too, and across the county. And again, I feel like it's a win-win-win in a whole lot of respects. And the last thing I'll say about it is that I was thinking about, this is really the gateway to the parkway. I mean, people get off, this is where people first see it. You know, when you get on the parkway, you see this hotel. It's kind of getting run down a little bit. It's not like one of the nicer hotels on the parkway. It's definitely showing its age. And that's kind of the first thing that people see when they come onto the parkway, or when students come with their parents to take a look at whether they want to go to school here, or if employees want to work at Binghamton University. So this is, I saw the renderings, the project's going to be absolutely beautiful. So just, certainly, our respect to the board members, appreciate you guys listening to the different points and different perspectives, and really encourage you to move this forward. They're gonna get started quickly. My understanding is this whole thing is gonna get demolished in June, and our landfill is ready to accept it. We're ready to go. But appreciate you listening, and would certainly appreciate the support on the project, because it really is needed. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Stacy, I know that the IDA never surprises a town or a school district or the city or whatever. I know that they're never surprised by a pilot. Could you maybe just explain how the town was approached with this pilot to begin with?
Yeah, so typically, process, it can vary. Sometimes those conversations with the municipalities are happening in tandem with our benefit, or, our discussion. Oftentimes, that's oftentimes, or as I said, it's not uncommon that a developer will have gone through the necessary site plan approval process and then discuss, come to us for that pilot application. Aptitude, we've been working with them for several months. We have to notify the town assessing office, because we can't create a pilot without their numbers. It's not we don't do the assessment. So the first interface is often, if it's not with the town supervisor, mayor, et cetera, directly, it would go through often the assessing unit. So Natalie gets that number from the assessing unit, and that's used to create the pilot. So when the aptitude was here about exactly a month ago, for the first step is always the acceptance of the application. So step one, review and accept the application for the purpose of setting up a public hearing. Town council was at our meeting. I provided a copy of the cost benefit, the project review, and the pilot application. Requested a meeting, should there be any concerns or comments, or just a meeting to review the project.
To who?
To town council, Dan D. Reynolds. We provided that information upon, when he left that day. We didn't have any questions or concerns that came to us, so I saw him a second time, offered that again. And it wasn't actually until the public hearing that Natalie staffed on March 17th that we first learned of any concerns about this from the town. So often it's often an interaction, usually at that assessing unit in the town governance. It's somewhere,
Yeah,
usually in that.
thank you. The reason I'm asking you to describe it is because I'm reading in the news. And I think someone stated that the town board was surprised by the existence of the pilot. And maybe that information didn't filter to the board on their end, but they certainly were apprised of this.
Yeah.
And
we
they
need to
did
get that
not raise
info.
any objections to this previously.
Right, because we can't even begin really our process without that
Yeah,
assessment.
right.
That's the most critical piece of putting the pilot structure together.
In fact, you had site approval by their board.
Yeah, and that's and given their timeline, I'm sure that they wanted to ensure that they had all the necessary plan approvals. And then come to us, because our goal, the idea is to be the last in, the but for. This is the last piece of the puzzle to make sure the project can move forward. So it's really exactly what they did with us.
If I may,
Actually, not at this time.
Thank you.
Stacy, quick question.
not question, statement. Right, so in our packet, we reviewed the pilot schedule.
Mhm.
I just want to verify, it's a standard pilot.
Yes, it's a
So
standard, yeah.
they're not asking, the application here isn't for anything above and beyond the standard vanilla.
Right, and I want to note one caveat, and I've asked Chris to provide, because I think there's a word we're using, quite frankly, incorrectly. So our UTEP, when we're doing a pilot, we never reduce the current tax.
Right.
We never go below what current taxes are. So what happens, not with every project, but with some projects, if you look at the pilot schedule, and this is also sent as well, in advance of our meetings, to the municipality. So if you look at year one of the first operational year, typically it's a 90% abatement. But what happens, not with every project, but for some, that 90% will actually cause the current tax value to go down slightly. So what we do is we adjust that to 85% so that the current tax payment never goes below where it is today. So, so that it, like I said, it doesn't occur with every project, but there are some that for whatever reason, and based on our uniform tax exemption policy, the current base will never go below what is being paid today.
Right,
But that's based
year
on-
three, it's up.
Yeah.
Right. It's actually in year three, it's up by 50%.
Yes,
Right, because it jumps from 100 to 157.
Yeah.
108 to 157, goes up 50% in a year, and then it escalates from there.
Yeah.
Terminology.
The last thing I'll just say is that this is how housing projects get done, not just in Binghamton, but all across the country. And if we're gonna start denying housing projects because we don't like pilots, we're not gonna get any more housing projects. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation, whether we like it or not.
costs have gone up.
Yeah.
Significantly. I do want to note, and I think I noted this last month, but I think it's important, we take the work, the feedback from our colleagues, very, with a lot of value. Aptitude does have a project in Tompkins County. We have had many conversations with our colleagues and have highly recommended them as a development.
Right.
With that said, is there a motion? Thank you, Elaine. Is there a second? Thanks, Mike. Any further discussion? Let's have a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carried. Item number 12 has been tabled as a result of Stacy's earlier comments and HCR's funding. Number 13 is an executive session, looking for a motion to go into executive session. Thanks, Jim. Is there a second? Thank you, Dayton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will adjourn to executive session.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're back in the regular session and there is no old business. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan. That's the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned on the corporation.
Just keeping you on your toes today.
Let's try that again. I'd like to call to order this meeting, the Broome County Local Development Corporation of March 19th, 2025. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes of our February 19th board meeting.
Motion.
Thanks, Dan. Second, Mike. Thank you, Michael. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We come to the part of our agenda where we have our public comment session. Anybody wishing to speak on any matter concerning the LDC, please step up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
John Solak, Binghamton, boy, you got 140,000 burning a hole in your pocket here to create yet another organization. Is that really the problem here? That we don't have enough organizations, and it's funny, every time I see Stacy on television, I have to refer to the Chiron because I don't know, it's like Hooterville. I don't know if she's speaking for the IDA or the Leadership Alliance or the Chamber of Commerce. So yet another new organization concocted out of thin air to support, to act as an umbrella and support the goals of the Chamber of Commerce and the IDA. But wait a minute, this is the LDC. You see how confusing this gets for a person of average intelligence like myself? How, you know, the goals, what goals are they? I mean, unless there's a grant coming in and some people that need jobs. Now that I can see, you know? But I don't understand it. I don't even think this is lawful for you to use, the LDC to create enterprises, for the Chamber of Commerce. What's the shared goals? I don't understand it. What is the shared goals? I mean, the Chamber of Commerce, for one, gets involved in politics. So, big time, and can. This is using, funds to essentially fund the goals, the development funds, to fund the goals of shared goals, of an organization that engages in politics. Absolutely, as far as I'm concerned, too close for comfort. Hey, one of your big projects, the UHS, have you been to the emergency room lately? Have you done a channel check down there and see how great it is? They wanted a zoo and they created a zoo. And it's the same thing in Utica. You know, everybody was talking about the hospital up there, I think it was St. Joe's, and how great it was gonna be with the Wynn Hospital, you know? Well, the only problem is the same people that were in the St. Joe's emergency room are now at Wynn's. It's not the building, although that building is an absolute disaster as far as ingress and egress. You go down the gully to the emergency room and you hear the screams of patients and the chaos and people behind bulletproof glass. What's it, the good life? Is that what you call it? Well, it's not a good life if you end up down there. It's almost easier, and I'm serious now, because they use the upper floors for testing. This is LDC business, by the way, because you all funded it. You know, you've got to get in your car and go around and come this way and to have a simple test, to have an ultrasound test. It's a disaster. It's a complete disaster. It's easier for me, and I'm sure others, if they think about it, to take a drive to Cayuga or take a drive to Bassett, because you're gonna spend less time. You spend more time driving, but you're gonna spend less time looking around for the procedure. So it's an absolute nightmare. Not bad looking from the outside, but boy, if you have to get in there and use it, it's horrific. I note with interest another project you funded was the Good Shepherd Village. Now that original guy, what's his, Keenan? He's getting $300,000 from the county for a few months' work to manage Willow Point. And he said that his big goal is to poach employees from Good Shepherd. So you see, no good deed goes unpunished. He's got $300,000 coming in for 6 months' work, managing Willow Point, and he's using his time and his ability to poach employees from somebody whose bonds you floated, you know, on that enterprise. So, you know, that's the way it is in this town. I'm gonna go. I waited a long time. It's gonna go have an ice cream cone. I'm gonna ask them for their certificate of tax exemption from the IDA before I make the purchase. I'll see you.
Thank you, John. Anybody else want to speak at this public comment session? New business, item number 4, resolution approving the 24 audit of Broome County Local Development Corporation conducted by Insero and Company CPAs LLP. Mr. Treasurer.
This comes forward from committee as a motion to approve.
Thank you, Dan. Is there a second? Thank you, Mike. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 5, resolution approving the readoption of the Broome County Local Development Corporation's investment and deposit policy, the internal controls and financial accountability policy, the purchasing policy, the property acquisition guidelines, and the property disposition guidelines with no changes. Dan?
This also comes forward with a motion to approve.
Thank you, Dan. Is there a second? Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item number 6, resolution authorizing the executive director of the Broome County Local Development Corporation to make a transfer of corporation funds in an amount not to exceed $140,000 to a newly formed umbrella C3 to advance the shared objectives of the agency and the Greater Binghamton Chamber of Commerce. Dan? This come through you,
No, because
Stacy?
it's an LDC, it didn't.
Would have been a governance item, maybe? Maybe not.
Would have been audit and finance, but.
Stop right there.
We did.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Thanks, Dan. Is there a second?
Definitely.
Thank you, Jim. Now we can discuss it. Would anybody like to discuss this?
Well, I'd like an explanation.
Background, go ahead.
So, background is for 5 years, we've had this partnership between the agency and the chamber. We've been calling it the Leadership Alliance, which is a name, and I'm not gonna disagree with John. It can be confusing trying to figure out which, you
Well,
know,
you're
which
working-
day it
You're
is.
working 160 hours a week, so I don't know why you're at all.
So this essentially would formalize the relationship through the creation of a C3, an umbrella C3. So think of STAG, Southern, in the Elmira region. Think of Ithaca Area Economic Development, which is the umbrella. The C3 does provide the benefit for grants and also private sector tax deductible contributions. So the C3 would be rebranded and it would serve as the umbrella name of the organization moving forward. We would create a small advisory board that would include a combination of a couple from each board. We have had some outside interests, including Jim Orband, Mary O'Malley Trumbull, and I think we're trying to lock in Jeff Lake, plus 2 from each board, to serve as really an advisory board. Some of the key objectives of this group would be to do the following: to do a feasibility and a potential investment campaign similar to what STAG and IAED do. So they go out and seek they ask the private sector to support the initiatives outlined by the organization. So they fund a number of initiatives. So they become investors of STAG or investors of IAED. The monies that are received, so that would be one of the key things, would be to have a group called Convergent Nonprofit Solutions, who they both work with and highly recommend, go out and solicit essentially an investment campaign that would direct some objectives over 3 years. So some of the things I could envision this group funding out of this new group would be some of the stuff that that's coming out of IDA funds right now, quite frankly. These are planning initiatives. It would fund a larger scale, a higher dollar promotional marketing campaign for the area to attract talent to the area. They use them for that. It could also be small projects within the region, wayfinding, beautification type projects. It just gives a little bit more of the private sector some skin in the game, and it's, and then, is that a good, I think that's the best way I can describe it.
What is marketing? Marketing as a unified force. That's really it's how this started, was the confusion that's out there as it relates to these organizations, I should say, not this
It
organization.
becomes the lead marketing brand, if you will.
And attached to that is raising money.
C3, is that an IRS thing? Like?
Yeah, we would,
501c3?
so we have a draft certificate of incorporation, but we have not filed. Once you file,
There's
you
more
can
to,
actually start to
Get donations,
Yes.
and the donation is tax.
Tax deductible for
Tax
the
deductible
company.
for the giver.
but it wouldn't be just C3, what's? is it-
501.
501. Yeah, it's not
Oh, okay,
501c3.
all right.
Sorry, I was lost too. I didn't
I'm
know.
sorry, I forgot to add the 501.
Oh, 501, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
There's
Just
that.
call them C3.
We just
Yeah.
had C3, C6,
I've never heard of
C4,
that,
yeah, so yeah.
But we need another organization to do this?
Well, I mean, I will say the challenge is the burden often lands with the IDA to fund everything.
Yeah.
And this would be, the investment coming in would be supported, and you go out and you create this plan, which I think I sent via email, I'm happy to reshare it. And you go out to the private sector and you say, here's 3 years of economic development goals. Do you buy into this plan? And therefore, would you invest in this plan? And then it's our job to, so things like,
So that other committee's job to do
Yes.
that, and we're
Yes.
seeding that whole
we're
program.
seeding it for a year,
$140,000
and I would
for 1
repay
year.
us for 1 year.
Well, with the understanding, by the way, that some or all of that money comes back to us once there's funds raised.
Right.
That's
It would just be
Is it
seeding the
a
first
loan?
year of
Or
activity.
different amount?
gonna be.
The
Is
LDC
it
can-
considered a loan?
The LDC can grant, but
So it grant-
but the IDA cannot. That's why it comes through the IDA.
LDC.
LDC.
I'm sorry, yes.
It's a grant, why would they give us the money back?
Well, we don't have to, but I thought I'd
But it's
pay
a
us
one-time
back.
thing.
Yes.
I thought I'd pay
We're
us
not
back.
funding it again next year or the year.
No, it would be if the investment
Does this
campaign
work in
doesn't.
other counties?
Yes, it does, and I'm happy to share I spoke at length with Jamie Johnson in Steuben County, Joe Roman and Chemung County, and Heather McDaniel and Tompkins, and they all have said very, very clearly, Convergent, the group we would look at, it's very niche what they do, and they're excellent at what they do.
What-
They're
what's their-
expensive because they keep a chunk of what they raise. So to give you some perspective, for Chemung over 3 years, they raise about 1.6 million. And any of these kind of activities are paid out of that. So it's not coming out of the IDA's pocket. A lot of, like these planning things and like we could create.
So one more golf tournament to go to and
Maybe.
more dinner chance that we don't want to go to.
Or less, maybe we could consolidate some things, who knows?
Where?
You have conventions to
Private,
go
we
to
basically go
also.
out to the private sector. So you
Forgot
get the
about
private, well, you get the private sector to be more a participant in economic development, but they also, at the flip side, hold us accountable for doing what we say we're gonna do.
And the
So,
private sector actually just
Yeah.
donates money to stuff like this?
What percentage does that marketing group get? What
I
they
think they
raise?
get,
A lot.
so if they raise 1 million, they're probably getting 200,000,
20%.
yeah.
I'm gonna get it 20%.
And what would the $140,000 do? actually?
I will, a lot of it's organizational costs, just setting everything up. I budgeted, the cost to do the feasibility study that Convergent would do is about 36,000. I put a few $1,000 in cushion there. I'll send that out. I think I sent it
And
out
the
rather
feasibility
late.
study would be for what?
They go out and they test the market. What's the appetite for the private sector to pay into?
Oh, okay.
Something like this. First year, we would do some modest level of creation of some videos to launch the new brand, but it would really pick up each year because theoretically we're raising money.
So the Leadership Alliance would no longer
We
be,
wouldn't call us that anymore.
it would
be-
morph into this.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's a lot. It is a lot. John's not wrong in that regard, but I think this is a more cohesive way of doing.
Stacy, what's the name of I'm blanking out on it, the organization in Syracuse, their economic
Center
development.
State.
Center State, isn't that what they are?
Yes, they're a chamber. They're not their IDA.
Oh,
So
they're
they're in chamber, but they also do what we're saying. They go out and seek private sector. They all call them investors.
They don't, I thought the idea was part of that.
No, there's actually 2 IDAs.
Did they used to?
No, never. I asked Robinson, I said, are you gonna take over the IDAs too? But he, no, doesn't want to. No, the city of Syracuse
Oh,
has
it's
an
still Rob
IDA
that runs it?
and Onondaga County has
Yep.
the IDA.
They both do.
I did a lot of work with them back in my Department of State.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great one.
I think it's a cleaner way of doing this partnership. It's you know, because we would drive a lot of our marketing and branding all to this. I mean, the agencies, the IDA is still gonna function as it does, and the chamber is still gonna function as it does, but the main entity for marketing and promotion would be this.
As long as
So-
it stayed on that path, marketing,
Yes.
unified marketing, I'm okay with it. If
I'm
we start
okay.
going off,
Is there a motion?
Since we're all saying what we're okay with,
there is a
Since
motion
everybody
and
would
a
like to get
second.
home
I
at
don't-
some point
how do we-
today.
I'm still not sure how we get our 140 back if we grant.
Oh, we can make it.
You can make it
Make
a
it a
forgivable loan.
Yeah.
That way you,
Why don't we do that?
Okay.
yeah, you make it a forgivable loan that you at your option.
Okay.
I don't-
Fine by
I
me.
like that.
Forgivable and.
Only,
I mean, I'm a good guy, but I'm not a great guy.
from the perspective that we're contributing 100% of the startup, chamber isn't, and it
That's what I
doesn't.
mean, it doesn't seem right.
Feel right.
That's what I'm saying.
And if
That's
you
why
want me to,
that's why they wanted to partner.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
because we have money and they
Shouldn't
don't.
it, should it be 70-70?
I'm happy to have that conversation with them about.
Can we get a commitment from this
Yeah.
group to fund the whole thing and then let Stacy have the conversation with the chamber board?
Yeah.
I don't want, if we're gonna do this, I want it to get moving because the study has to be done and we
Yeah,
need
that's
to
fair.
get out into the market and raise money to get this off the ground. That's all.
Forgive a loan from, we can forgive the interest too.
You get nicer and nicer by the minute.
Okay.
So we have a motion in a second. Is there any further discussion?
Just one other question. You don't see this in So we have all these businesses that belong to the Chamber of Commerce and they pay membership dues. You don't see any conflict for them? Are they gonna
Yeah.
continue to pay their membership and donate money to the?
Yeah, and I asked that
how it
question,
works?
how does that work? And they work in it. It's not been an issue like Peter's not here, but Peter pays to both, like Peter's a member of both. And then because I think it's because chamber dues are not tax deductible, so many of them
Okay.
just do that because it's the right, but what they invest in like Ithaca Area Economic Development is all tax deductible, so they can do a larger.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Coming from a business owner, it's a money grab. I'm looking around the table, no offense, you're out, but am I right?
Yeah.
Retire, sound like the ant commercial. I'm like, if someone's knocking on my door looking for more money, I don't care if it's a non-for-profit or not, I'm like, yeah, what are we gaining from this?
Well, and I think that's what the feasibility is important to do is test it. I'm very curious. I don't know what.
I'm
dollar
surprised
value
this
of
works
that
in other
is.
places.
I am a little.
Somebody raising another county raising 1.6 million, was that over a 5-year
Over 3
period?
years.
Oh, 3 years,
And they're going into their 4th campaign with Convergent, so they must
so it's
feel like it's working.
If it works in other
the
places.
Bend County and it's Corning, or, I mean, in Peter's position, M&T, they got big pockets. You got Universal, you
Well,
got
just
big
maybe all the
companies
lawyers
that are
and
doing
bankers
that.
Pay into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, let's see, and yeah, so I'm curious to see if they come back with a value, what value they come back with, what they think is reasonable.
Our curiosity is
I
gonna
will.
cost the LDC 140 grand.
Maybe not.
It's a loan. Interest free.
Yeah.
No, it's not interest free. We're charging interest. We got a loan. We might
Are
forgive it.
we ready for a vote? All those in favor say aye.
Yeah, I'll go there.
Is there any
I don't
ayes
know,
on
I'm
this?
kind of on the fence.
Aye. Anybody
I
else
will
gonna
bring
support
whatever
this?
I'll
this
give
group
you an
decides.
I will too, just,
Dan?
yeah, I will.
Thank you.
I'm holding my nose, but I'm giving.
Me too, yeah.
I know
me
where
too.
Dan is going. Mike,
I would be in favor of 70,000.
I could talk. to them.
Motion's on the floor for 140.
Yeah, so no.
Up to.
There's a no.
No,
Okay, 2 no's and 4 yeses.
and I don't know if this is the right spot, but maybe it should be tabled. I know you want to get moving on it until the rest of the board has an opportunity to think
Yeah,
about that. 'cause we're
That's a good
missing-
idea.
Joe's-
Actually, that's a
Three or
good
four
idea.
other-
I know Joe
Yeah.
Barabito is on board,
He has a vote.
he has a vote,
Peter's on.
and I believe Peter is, but I don't want to speak.
I don't think so.
I still think you gotta go back to him
I
and
don't
say,
think-
here's your
I
70.
agree. This is a guess, but I don't think so.
I agree with you there.
But it passed. They got 2 no's and 4 yeses.
With the understanding that we will
I will ask them for
rediscuss this at the
50%.
next meeting, and Stacy will approach the chamber as it relates to their contribution.
And I have an
You have-
executive
you have to
committee
have
meeting
5
with them
to move it
tomorrow
forward?
morning.
No, we have a quorum, so we're okay.
Right.
As long as the majority of the quorum.
I'm getting verbiage in my ear over here.
Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
This is
Thank
the
you,
mayor.
thank
All right,
you.
I
All in
promise
favor,
April
say
will
aye.
be quick.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
On that.